This story begins on the day a normal-looking student, Ayanokoji, Kiyotaka, commutes to his new high school, the Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing High School. While on the bus, Ayanokoji watches a scene play out in front of him. A blonde-haired girl asks people on the bus to give up their space so an elderly woman can sit and rest during her trip. Most of the students there refuse to give up their seats. Luckily for the old woman, someone gives up their seat and the ride continues smoothly. Ayanokoji gets to his new school and walks towards his classroom. On his way there, a girl stops him and asks him why he was staring at her back on the bus. Ayanokoji calmly tells her he just happened to be looking her way and that it's nothing. The girl murmurs some other self-elevating nonsense, and Ayanokoji waits for her to finish before getting to class. So the Tokyo Metropolitan High School is a prestigious school that boasts of having a 100% employment rate after graduation, and is also said to admit only the best students in all of Japan. Ayanokoji joins the other freshmen as they listen to the president of the student council give them a welcoming speech. While the president delivers his speech, Ayanokoji finds out he's in the same class as the sassy lady from earlier. Even worse, they sit next to each other. After the orientation, students of Class 1D, Ayanokoji's class, all assemble in their class and wait for their homeroom teacher to show their faces. While they wait, the interim class representative asks everyone to introduce each other so they can be more flexible in choosing friends. While the others introduce themselves, Ayanokoji keeps wondering what he'll save everybody. He's scared he might cringe his classmates out, as there's nothing that interesting about him. When his time comes, Ayanokoji makes a half-assed introduction and tells his classmates about his boring lifestyle. The students still appreciate the effort and clap for him. At that moment, their homeroom teacher enters. She introduces herself as Chabashirase and hands out copies of the school's rulebook to the students. She then moves on to explain the special rules of the school and tells them they will be confined to live in dorms with very little permission to go out of the school premises, not to a cinema for entertainment and a nice park for relaxation. Furthermore, SaR&x tells the students about the currency they would be spending at the school. Each student is assigned 100,000 points to spend every month to buy stuff only within the school premises. After class, Ayanokoji gets to the supermarket on campus to get some stuff he needs. There he runs into this sassy lady from earlier. He asks for her name and she tells him she's Horikita Suzune. He notices she was buying all the cheap stuff despite having lots of points at her disposal. He tries making a good conversation with her, but she just keeps pushing him away, telling him she doesn't need any friends. Just then, they hear someone screaming at the top of their lungs. They go check it out and find out Koudo. One of their classmates with anger issues just got into a fight with some Class 1C students. Ayanokoji stops the fight and continues his day. A few days later, Ayanokoji's classmates begin forming groups. Ayanokoji realizes how much of a failure he is in making friends. He takes a walk in the corridor and finds Koshia, who asks to talk with him. Koshia asks Ayanokoji to tell her some information about Suzune, as she wants to be friends with her. The school continues for the rest of the day, and SaR&x delivers their final lecture. After class, Suzune talks to Ayanokoji about the leniency SaR&x was displaying towards the students. Turns out the students were just lazing around, not minding whether SaR&x was there or not. Ayanokoji asks Suzune to accompany him to the cafe, and she reluctantly accepts his plea. On getting there, they find a free table and set up camp there. Kushida leaves her seat and walks over to theirs to talk with Suzune. Suzune smells something fishy with Kushida getting closer. She gets up and leaves. Kushida begs her to be friends with her, but Suzune rejects her proposal and leaves. On their way back to the dorms, Ayanokoji finds Kushida's friends with students from other classes. They discuss the point system and how much they're given to spend each month. Eventually, Ayanokoji gets to his dorm in peace. That night, Ayanokoji thinks about how badly his classmates had spent their points. He also gives their nonchalance towards their classes a thought and calls it a day. The next day is the start of a new month. This means the students get new points right, wrong. SaR&x walks in majestically and has her revenge on the students for ignoring her classes. She tells them the school only dishes out points based on the homeroom teacher's assessment of the class. SaR&x tells her students she didn't rate them at all, so they aren't receiving any points for that month. The students of Class D take the devastating news pretty well, as many of them hit the swimming pool during lasers to cool off from the steam. Suzune joins Ayanokoji near the pool, and they stare at the beautiful and busty Kushida, who's playing with some other girls in the pool. Suzune gets inquisitive and asks Ayanokoji about the S system, which is a system that ranks the classes A to D based on their performance and attitude towards their studies. Upon admission, each student is given 100 class points, which would dwindle every time they do something bad. By the end of the month, Class D, the most effective class in the freshman year, had 0 points to spare due to their nonchalant attitude. To get it back up, they would have to pass tests and exams and also prove to the school one way or the other. Ayanokoji finds Suzune that she's one of the losers and would have to work with them as she plans on overtaking the rest of the classes. Suzune takes a look at Ayanokoji's hands and asks if he plays sports. Ayanokoji tells her no. Just then, Kushida gets out of the pool and asks Suzune to swim with her. Again, Suzune rejects her proposal and just continues her way. Soon, the class rep calls everyone together and tells them they have to work together if they plan on getting any more points. Suzune stands and watches from the other end of the pool in disgust. A few meters from her in a room, the president of the student council congratulates 2 classes' students for getting 940 points in their class. After the PE break, the students change back into their uniforms and head back to class. Suzune invites Ayanokoji, short for Ayanokoji, for lunch during their lunch break. By then, she buys him an expensive meal and tells him about her plans to create a study group for the dejected students of their class, just so they can pass the upcoming tests and exams. Ayanokoji doesn't want to get mixed up in too much stuff, but Suzune tells him he has no choice. She gives him her contact information and leaves him to decide. Ayanokoji picks it up and asks some of the worst students in the class to join the study group. All say nay. That evening, Ayanokoji calls Kushida's dorm through the firm's internal line and speaks to her. Kushida picks up the call and asks what the problem is. Ayanokoji asks her to supervise study groups for Koudo and some other underprivileged students in their class. Being the nice person she is, Kushida accepts the role and gives Ayanokoji her contact. After the call, Ayanokoji finds out Kushida already got the 3 dumbest students on board. He then calls Suzune to ask her if she would let Kushida teach the students. Suzune tells him she can't allow that. Kushida finds out and decides to do something about it. The next day, Ayanokoji, Suzune, and Kushida set up a small interview for the underprivileged students in her school. As expected, Suzune talks down on every student there, and this causes the others to leave without getting interviewed. After they leave, Suzune regrets asking Ayanokoji and Kushida for help. Kushida gets up to leave and promises to do something about the matter on the ground, plays crying as Ayanokoji just sits there and observes what's happening. That night, Ayanokoji steps out of his dorm to get something. He finds Suzune and the president of the student council club talking. The president is her brother and was very ashamed of his sister for getting admitted into the most dejected class of the entire school. He holds Suzune up and goes in to punch her. Ayanokoji, who was watching the scene play out, steps in and saves Suzune from injury. The president attacks Ayanokoji for interrupting their discussion, but he dodges every hit. The president gets impressed and asks about Ayanokoji's background. Turns out Ayanokoji intentionally got a 50 in all entrance exams just so he could get admitted into Class D. The president leaves shortly. Ayanokoji and Suzune sit somewhere around the school to talk. Suzune asks him if he rigged his exam scores, as her brother said. Ayanokoji tells her it's all just a coincidence, and then talks about the students. School goes on normally the next day and the next. A few days after midterm, she announces the test results to the class and congratulates them on passing excellently. The whole class erupts in joy after finding out they passed their midterm test. Everyone has Kushida to thank for helping them study their hardest subjects in passing. 3 days before the test, Ayanokoji sees Koudo fighting with the same Class C students again. This time, their boss Ryuin stops by to tease the guy with anger issues. Koudo is held down and almost used as a plaything if not for Ikinos of Class B, who came at the right time to stop the fight. Ryuin and his goons are forced to leave Koudo alone. Ayanokoji also joins in and tells Koudo to keep his cool next time. Once the whole fight's settled, Ayanokoji asks Koudo to join Kushida in their study session. Koudo refuses to do so and gets to basketball practice instead. After practice that day, Suzune meets Koudo outside the auditorium and gives him some summaries of their subjects in class. She tells him he has to study if he wants to keep playing basketball in school. Koudo accepts it in good faith and gets home. The next day, Kushida meets Ayanokoji in the cafeteria to buy off some midterm pass questions from a second-year student. They propose to trade off 10 points for the pass questions and call it a deal. The dude tells them he wants 30, but Kushida and Ayanokoji negotiate the price to about 15. The dude accepts the new price and gets right down to business. After lunch, Ayanokoji and Kushida take a break outside. Kushida asks him if it was legal to have pass questions. Ayanokoji tells her it's perfectly legal, and it is within the school rules for them to do so. Just then, the dude sends them the pass questions they need. Ayanokoji cross-checks it with a 1 from 3 years ago and finds out they're the same question. Kushida immediately gets happier, but Ayanokoji tells her to tell everyone she was the one who got the pass questions, as he doesn't want to get into the spotlight just yet. A day before the test, Kushida hands out the pass questions to her classmates and tells them to study hard before their tests. Everyone feels relieved and thanks her for her service. Fast forward to the present, SaR tells them, although most of them passed, there was one person who couldn't get the pass mark. Koudo, the hot-headed every one of his classmates tries to reason with SaR to get Koudo's expulsion revoked. However, she refuses to do such a thing and leaves the class. Ayanokoji follows her to the roof and talks about rules and virtues with her. SaR asks him to cut to the chase, so Ayanokoji asks her at a point to Koudo's score just so he can remain in the class with them. SaR laughs and tells him it's impossible to do such a thing. Ayanokoji asks how many points he would need to spend to get her to change her mind. SaR tells him 100,000 points. Ayanokoji doesn't have up to that amount of points, so he tries another way. Thankfully, Sujun joins them and offers to pay half of the price alongside Ayanokoji just so they can buy the point for Koudo. SaR smiles as she knows she has no choice but to accept the deal. After class that evening, Ayanokoji thanks Sujun for helping him out earlier. Sujun tells him she only did such a thing for her benefit. Ayanokoji tells her not to pretend that he knows she intentionally got a lower score just so the dumb students in the class won't feel left out. Sujun punishes him for saying that out loud. A few hours later, the students all gather in Ayanokoji's room to celebrate Koudo's return to their school. The students ask Ayanokoji how he changed SaR's mind, but he tells them Sujun did all the work. After the party, Ayanokoji and Kushida remain to clean up before going to bed. Before leaving, Kushida asks Ayanokoji if he likes Sujun. Ayanokoji tells her she's nothing but his neighbor. Kushida thanks him and leaves. Before she walks far, Ayanokoji notices she forgot her phone behind. He follows her but doesn't find her in her room. He traces her movements and finds the innocent Kushida cussing at Sujun for being hard on her. Ayanokoji gets exposed, and he shows his face. Kushida's face changes into a monster ready to eat anybody up. She asks him if he saw what she just did. Ayanokoji tells her he saw nothing. No, he was lying. Kushida threatens him not to ever breathe a word of what he saw to anybody, or else she'll accuse him of raping her and ending his career. Surprising turn of events, right? Ayanokoji promises not to say anything, and Kushida returns to her innocent little self. On the next school day, Class 1B's teacher announces the update on their points to them. In the meantime, Ayanokoji joins Kushida and Sujun on the elevator down to their dorm as they get to class. Ayanokoji recalls the state he found Kushida in the previous night, and is surprised to see her close to Sujun again. Sujun stops midway and walks out of the elevator, leaving a sad look on Kushida's face. Ichinoshi finds them and asks whether D already got their points. Clearly no, as Ayanokoji and Kushida express their surprise at her question. In class, SaR tells the students there's been an issue in the point dispensation program. Class 1D would have to wait for a while before getting their points known to them. Ichinoshi asks Ayanokoji to meet with her later on after class. He gets to a secluded place in the school and finds Ichinoshi already waiting for him. Ichinoshi cuts to the chase and asks Ayanokoji to pretend to be her boyfriend. She tells him she found a love letter in her locker and didn't want to hurt their feelings by telling them no. If Ayanokoji can be her boyfriend, even if it's for a week or so, then maybe the other person would get the memo and stop chasing her. Ayanokoji tells her he wants no part in the drama and that she should tell the person how she truly feels. Just then, Shikoro, the person who sent the letter, meets with Ichinoshi. Ayanokoji gives them some space to talk. Later on, Shikoro runs out crying her eyes out as if she was just rejected. Ichinoshi comes out with a smile on her face and thanks Ayanokoji for helping her out. Ayanokoji gets back to class after he meets with Ichinoshi and finds Koudo shouting out loud and telling his colleagues he was taunted into attacking some Class C students. She walks in a while later and informs the class that Class C filed a complaint against Koudo for fighting 3 of their students out of spite. Koudo tells her that he acted out of self-defense, but none of his colleagues believes him. Seeing as he has little control over his temper, it's not completely impossible to think he would do such a thing. That night, Ryuin, the boss of Class C, is seen enjoying his time in the school's bar. One of his goons walks in injured to report the incident with Koudo. Instead of consoling him, Ryuin has his bouncer beam up more so he looks completely like the victim. The next day, Suzune asks for Ayanokoji's thoughts on whether or not he regrets not having Koudo expelled when they had the chance to. Ayanokoji tells her it won't do their class any good if they lose any one of their colleagues. Surpassing the class ranking system is a team effort, and they need all hands on deck. Just then, the class rep calls everyone together to help prove Koudo's innocence. Everyone, including Ayanokoji, agrees to help him out. Suzune refuses to give her answer and just walks away. Kushida meets up with Ayanokoji and sets up meeting with Ayanokoji and 2 other students after school. That evening by the fountain, Ichinose also joins them and offers to help Ayanokoji and his colleagues out. Ayanokoji refuses her help as he suspects she may have a hidden agenda. Ichinose tells Ayanokoji to keep calm and she just wants to help them out. Later that day, everyone begins investigating the crime to find who's innocent. At one point, Ichinose receives an anonymous text explaining their next lead. She wants to pay the person some points, but she doesn't know how she could do it since the 2.6 million points, as opposed to the 100,000 she's supposed to have. That evening, the students all meet at Ayanokoji's dorm room to table their findings. Suzune arrives shortly and joins them. She tells the group that she found out Sakura was the one who sent the anonymous text earlier. She was the only one who witnessed the fight happen. Just then, Sakura, who's in a dark room, receives a call from Kushida, but she refuses to pick it up. Suzune tells them not to worry too much about her since her testimony won't matter that much. Later that night, Kushida visits Ayanokoji to talk about the case. They take a walk around campus and Ayanokoji first engages her in a speech about crime and stuff. Kushida asks Ayanokoji if he truly knew all about Suzune or not. Ayanokoji tells her it's impossible to know everything about someone. Kushida's about to ask him something, but she stops halfway and leaves. The next day, Kushida meets with Sakura to ask her about the crime. Sakura hurriedly rushes away and apologizes for doing nothing. Turns out she doesn't want to get involved in the case, as she fears it would expose her secret life. Ayanokoji watches Sakura run away from Kushida and wonders what she could be hiding from everyone. He gets an idea that she's probably a webcam girl, but he can't confirm his suspicions just yet. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see a part 2, then leave a comment. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Take care.